Scheffler was just spectacular. He's playing the best golf of anybody. It's his first major. He should be what we remember about this week, but that's just not the way it works sometimes in sports, and Tiger is just so beloved in that sport, so charismatic. People care so much about him that just seeing him out there, and from the good to the end to the smile as he walked off the final green, I mean, I do believe that when we think back to 2022, say 20 years from now, it's going to be Tiger's return is what will be the takeaway. And, again, is that the way it should be? Probably not, but I think that's true.
It's interesting that you put it that way. Scottie Scheffler absolutely separated from the field. I mean, the course identified the player playing the best golf by far, and that guy, man, he put a punctuation on the week. But on the other side, I'm watching Tiger Woods. He has generational upon generational wealth. He doesn't need to do any of this, but he clearly loves to compete. And so just as a sports fan, I'm looking at this guy, and I'm like, man, he should have quit, retired, whatever, walked away from the game years ago. The fact that he still wants to go out there and continue to play, I just appreciate it. I had so much gratitude watching him because he helped get me into the game, and seeing him limp through at the end, but the smile that he had, I think him, he's become more regal, the way Kobe kind of came regal at the end of his career. I don't know. I've looked at him in a totally different light these last couple of years. So I had admiration for watching him gut it out at the end there.
Yeah, it's well said. I mean, the scene of him walking off the final green on Sunday, after he finished 13 over for the tournament or whatever, but the giant smile he had, lots of little scenes. I didn't do a lot of following. Just there's so many people around him. It's hard to even get close. So I mostly just sort of watched from afar. But even the few minutes that I was close, you see him acknowledging fans in a way that I don't think he ever did. And I think that's kind of part of what you're talking about. And to me, it is so true that just admiring the competitiveness is what, if you ever needed to know, not that we needed to, we've had a million examples, what makes him great. Friday is what has made him great, because that's the worst start he could have possibly had. He bogeys 4 of the first 5 holes. He limps off the 5th. Nothing's going right. He's just, the whole thing is going in the wrong direction. And everybody else in that field, I believe, would have just walked off the course, essentially. Maybe not quit, but mentally checked out and said, look, it was a huge accomplishment for me to be here. And so I did what I came to do. I was here. And no, what did Tiger do? He said, I'm not missing the weekend. And he played from that point on 3 under through the end of the round to make the cut easily and get to limp around for 2 more days out there. Yeah. And to me, that is as emblematic as almost anything in his career.
Totally agree.
About what has made this guy different. It was inspirational. I mean, it's impossible to describe how difficult that was for him physically this weekend. And he did not want to go home.
No.
He did not want to cash it in. He wanted 2 more days, even if I'm sure deep down he thought there's no way I can hang in there and really win this thing. Yeah. But he wanted to be there.
It's Sunday, you're obviously there. You're at Augusta, the Masters, and I'm watching Scottie Scheffler, and the 12th hole gets somebody else again. But not only am I watching the aging superstar of Tiger Woods, I'm watching the ascending youngster that you loved, Elliot Ramos, make his appearance in the bigs, and he looks good. I mean, the kid I saw in spring training who looked a little overwhelmed. I mean, we only saw 4 games televised, but the kid who I saw who looked a little overwhelmed and off balance looked totally comfortable. He looks like he's got all the power in the world, the speed, the arm strength, the bat speed to come through the zone. What did you think of Elliot Ramos' debut, Dave?
Yeah, I agree. He looked like he belonged, which is a hard thing for a guy. He's still 22. It's funny because he's been around for a while, and yet he's one of the 6 or 7 youngest players in the game. He's a very young player, and yet it feels like we've been talking about him for years. I was impressed with the way he carried himself. I've always been impressed with his tools. He's definitely got the physical ability. He's clearly made some refinements to his game. Here's the challenge for Elliott right now. I mean, ultimately, this is going to be a strength. But the way the Giants have constructed this particular roster, they have so many players who have one particular strength, one thing that they really do well, and the Giants are just so good at finding ways to utilize that strength. That's how they won 107 games last year. And Elliott, it's funny that this is not a criticism, but Elliott doesn't kind of have that one thing. What makes Elliott an exciting young talent is he does everything well. He's a good defender. He runs well. He's got power, but he can get the bat on the ball and put the ball in play when you need him to. He's a very well-rounded player. The challenge is going to be on this roster where every day the Giants want to mix and match and find matchups. Will he have enough of an edge over somebody else to get a lot of playing time? And maybe the answer early in his career is going to be no. Maybe the answer is he's here for a little bit and he'll go back down and then work his way back up again. It seems strange that is not a criticism, but on this team, it's almost like his well-roundedness might cost him a little playing time. Ultimately, that's what makes me think he's got a chance to be a really good long-term big league player, because he's the kind of guy who I think once he gets even better, a little more experience, you're going to be able to just put him in there and you don't worry about him. It's like one of those spots where the manager, it's stress-free. Like, okay, Ramos, he's in, he's going to play, he's going to stay healthy, he wants to be out there, and that'll be a strength for him.
I was going to say, Raul Mondesi is the skill set that I'm looking at with him in terms of body type and because Raul Mondesi was a really well-rounded player. You know what I mean? And I think he was faster than you thought. He was stronger than he looked. I don't know. Maybe that's an unfair comp, but that's what I'm looking at from the kid early on. I mean, I've only seen a couple of at-bats.
Yeah, I mean, that would be a great outcome. If Ramos got to be the player that Raul Mondesi was, then that would be the Giants would have. Raul Mondesi, there were some times he made a few boneheaded plays, and he kind of got pegged there unfairly at as his career went on. That was a super talented guy. If that was the outcome for Ramos, that'd be a huge victory for the Giants.
The familiar voice you hear is Dave Flemming, of course, Giants broadcaster and 95.7 The Game Giants insider. Switching from Elliott Ramos, Dave, to Joey Bart. In the first 3 games that he's played so far this season, he's already had 4 walks compared to his 3 walks in the entirety of 2020. It's been impressive, at least from my standpoint of watching Joey Bart so far. It feels like he's way more comfortable as the starting catcher for the Giants. How have you evaluated his first 3 games so far, Dave?
Oh, I think that's, to me, I mean, again, 4 games, but that's the bright spot of the early year is Joey.
Yeah.
I've been really, really impressed with the way he looks. I mean, he looks ready to do the job, and I did not think that was going to be the case. Now, after spring training, maybe I did, but coming into this spring training, I thought he needed some more time. It's just so much to ask for so many reasons at that position, and replacing that guy, the guy that he's following, just such a tall order. And yet, I mean, you could make a strong case he's been the best Giants player through the first weekend plus. He's looked really solid all the way around. His at-bats are last night, that we never saw at-bats like that. Our first
the inside pitch that he drove, he couldn't do that in 2020.
He could not get to that pitch. He smoked it. He also couldn't lay off the other stuff that they were trying to get him to. Joey's got huge power the other way. And to your point there, just doing that last night, what he did to that inside pitch and pulling it down the left field line, he's going to see, and he laid off most of them last night, but now he's going to start to see some pitches middle away because teams immediately will flag that and see what he did. And he's going to hit a couple balls out into the gap and over the right center field wall here soon. I mean, that's going to happen tonight or tomorrow or whenever, because that's how it works up here. It just happens so fast where teams identify what you do well and what you don't do well, and that's going to get him some pitches to hit. I really, really encouraging. Again, 3 games he's been in there out of 4, but the Giants have to be totally thrilled with the way he's looked.
How have you viewed him defensively so far? Because part of the reason last year why Buster Posey wasn't playing every third day was just to get Curt Casale in there some reps with the starting pitchers. I mean, do you think that's going to change with Joey Bart this year? Do you think he's going to continue to just play 2 games and then take the 1 game off? Or do you think he's going to get more games in a row as opposed to this weekend?
Yeah, I think it's going to be a Posey-like schedule, which is a lot. I mean, I think the Giants came into spring training thinking that it would be a 50-50-ish split between the two. That Joey needs time. It's going to move real fast for him. It doesn't look like it's moving fast at all. I mean, he looks like he's in control out there. And so that I think they've already made a recalibration. Like, if he keeps playing this way, he's going to get 2 out of every 3, and then, maybe a handful of DH spots if you're facing a lefty where he's swinging the bat really well and you need a little extra offense. That's a good chunk of work for him. So I think they've already kind of made that adjustment up to that. I still think they think Curt Casale is one of the better. If he's going to be the second catcher and not just a split, I think they think he's one of the better second catchers in the game. So he's still going to play quite a bit.
We're talking with Dave Flemming, voice of the San Francisco Giants, was out at Augusta as well. We touched briefly on the Masters, but we're getting into Giants baseball. I'm super excited. I'm going to take my dad out there tonight. And the guy made 2 incredible plays defensively last night, Mike Yastrzemski. But at the plate, he's like the opposite of Darren Ruff. Darren Ruff's had great at-bats and hasn't had anything to show for it. Conversely, it feels like Yastrzemski's just been off balance. And I know he got the hit later on in the game, but what's going on with him right now, Dave? I'm really worried about just how the at-bats are looking right now.
Yeah, timing's off for sure, because you're right. He's earned his 1 for 10 or whatever it is. I think it's fair to be worried, but I think we saw in the spring a guy, to me, who looked like he had the juice back that he had 2 years. I think Mike is in a good place physically. I thought he had some of the best at-bats of anybody all spring. And so sometimes, the lights come on, it's the start of the regular year, you face 3. I mean, it's 2, especially in his case. Marlins have nasty pitching.
Yeah, Alcantara.
The Marlins have those 2 guys
filthy
as a combo, and throw in the lefty on Sunday. I mean, that's about as good as it gets. I mean, those guys are, and Sandy he's just ridiculously talented. So sometimes, you face somebody like that, it's like, oh my God, I didn't see anything like that in the spring, and you get a little click off or something. I still think he's in for a solid year, but it felt big that he got just even that first hit last night, because nobody, no matter how accomplished you are, no matter how confident you are, nobody wants to start the year on an offer. And you look up there, and it's like, when is this? Then you just start. It's all consuming. It's like, when's the first hit coming? So the fact that he got that hit, I think will sort of unlock Yaz. We'll see.
Moving from the lineup to the starting rotation, Dave. Now, we have seen Logan Webb, we've seen Anthony DeSclafani, we've seen Alex Wood, and they pretty much were what we expected. Logan Webb was awesome. Anthony DeSclafani and Alex Wood, we'd hope they'd get a little more run support in their starts. But Carlos Rodon on Saturday with his 12 Ks in his Giants debut, I mean, this guy is a lefty throwing 99 on the black. I mean, he is an impressive pitcher.
Hold your breath and hope that the Giants know what they're doing, which we know they know what they're doing. But in terms of keeping him healthy and managing the workload, because that guy right there that we saw on Saturday, that guy is a top 5 pitcher in the game. Like that is like, that's not just, oh my gosh, the Giants hit on another pitcher. Wow, this team's really good at identifying guys. Like, that's a Cy Young candidate and more. That's a guy, if you get him to the playoffs in the shape that he's in right now, you go in with Webb and Rodon and think we can match up with anybody in the starting rotation in the playoffs. That was incredible. That should make everybody, I said Joey Bart was the best development of the first few days. Maybe not. Maybe that was it. 'Cause, that was something else. I mean, the swing and miss stats, like, Matt Cain never got that many swings and misses in any start in his whole career. Rodon pitched 5 innings. Tim Lincecum did it like 3 times, had that many swings and misses in his career. He did it in 5 innings.
Dave, you just told me that Matt Cain never had that many swings and misses in his entire career in a single game. Is that serious?
I think that's true.
Wow,
that's true.
That performance reminded me, and I'm going way back in the time machine. 2009, final weekend of the year. Lincecum's pushing for the Cy Young. He doesn't have a great overall record, and he strikes out 12 in the first 5 innings. That's what that reminded me of. Electric stuff. And I was really encouraged with the pitch sequencing from Joey Bart, which we haven't really gotten into, because I was monitoring that. Like, hey, what's it going to look like behind the dish between Bart and the battery of the pitching cohorts and whatnot? The only area I'm a little worried with, and I want to get to this, is Camilo Duvall, because the fastball was just electric last year, and we know he dialed back the slider, and that's what really got him locked in for that final month of the year. It felt like slider in the 9th inning on Friday, and they weren't on the same page. He didn't have his best stuff. Comes back in there on Saturday, looked like he was better on Saturday. He used more of that fastball. Any concerns with Camilo as we start this year? Because bullpen was a key part to their success last year.
Yes, concern in that he, right now, for whatever reason, that slider is not fooling left-handers at all. Right now, against a left-handed hitter, Duvall is really exposed, and he needs to fix that. It's not like that has to be a total wipeout pitch against lefties, but he needs that pitch because he's a 2-pitch guy. And we saw it last night in the at bat against Jake Cronenworth, I think it was he was just all over the map with that thing, and that finally just had to throw a fastball, and Cronenworth ripped it, or maybe it was Hosmer. Hosmer ripped it, and I think that's a concern for the Giants. If you want him pitching high leverage innings against the best teams, he's got to have that weapon. So whether it's he's not hiding the ball or whatever it is, that's that they need to get that fixed, because right now I don't feel that confident with him. And look, again, it's only 3 outings, but at this moment, I don't feel that confident with him against left-hand. Against righties, he's still, he's about as nasty as it gets. But there's something about that slider that lefties are really seeing big right now. That has to get fixed. The other concern, not to pile on, but Giants defense has not been good.
What about the situational awareness? Last night, Tyler Rogers, 1st and 3rd, no outs, ball in front of you. Go home with that. Oh, that was frustrating.
Yeah. The idea of he's a very confident fielder as a pitcher. A lot of pitchers don't even think about a double play. A lot of pitchers just say, get the out at home. It's right in front of me. Keep it, and late in the game, that really almost needs to be your mindset. And I think Tyler learned something from that. But Tyler, he's going to be fine. He fields his position. That was a bad luck inning, and then nobody hit the ball hard against him, and it turned into the difference in the game. But some of the outfield defense has been a little rough. Third base defense has been rough. It's a concern. Again, until the Giants get healthy, maybe we need to just not evaluate, because they are missing some key pieces. Even Brandon Crawford's not been perfect out at shortstop. That, in conjunction with their pitching, was a huge reason for their success last year. They were one of the best defensive teams in the game. Right now, through 4 games, they're last in defensive runs saved of everybody in baseball. And 4 games is not nearly enough of a sample to make a judgment on, especially something like defense, but that's got to get cleaned up.
Wow. Dave Flemming, play-by-play voice of the San Francisco Giants,
Dave.
of course, 95.7 Giants insider. We got you, Darvish, for the Padres. Our first look at Alex Cobb as a Giant tonight. So we'll be joined weekly by Dave Flemming throughout the baseball season. Thanks so much for joining us this morning, Dave. We'll talk to you next week.
Okay, great. Good to talk to you both.
Legend.